What's going on, everyone? Thank you for stopping by to visit the channel for the game previews this week. If you want to stay updated in the world of college football, click that subscribe button, click the notification bell, and select all so you won't miss another video. If you want to skip ahead to the preview you want to see, I do have it timestamped to where you want to begin in the description below. In the first matchup of the week, we got the number 1 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide versus number 25 Texas A&M over in College Station. Both teams are coming off their respective bye weeks and coming off victories. Will this be the game that Tide gets tripped up, or will they continue their dominance this season? Without further ado, let's go ahead and look at the tail of the tape. So as we look at the tail of the tape of advanced metrics, the Crimson Tide holds a large advantage over the Aggies. Despite the advantages, the Aggies will provide the best defensive SP Plus team the Crimson Tide will have faced so far in this season. SP Plus and Vegas seems to agree with the early point spread at -13, and SP Plus gives the Crimson Tide a 78% win probability. It's real simple for the Aggies. On offense, they go as Kellen Mond goes. With them losing Jashawn Corbin for the rest of the year, it is Mond or bust, and his career has been up and down. Part of that is due to him having great games at home and mediocre games away from College Station. At home, Mond averages 8 yards per pass attempt while completing 67% of his passes, which is fantastic. With road or neutral site games, he throws for 61% of his passes, which is still pretty good, but he averages 6.3 yards per pass attempt. Mond is comfortable throwing the ball to his top 3 wide receivers in Jamon Osborne, Courtney Davis, and Kendrick Rogers. All 3 receivers are big physical targets, and Osborne is 5th in the conference in receiving yards per game. But on defense, I'm not going to mince words here. Last year, the Aggies were fantastic at stopping the run, but they were horrendous in pass defense. This year, they're actually pretty solid in both aspects. This year, they're allowing 84% of their opponents' passing averages and 80% of their opponents' rush averages. Justin Matabuke and Buddy Johnson are very disruptive. Matabuke is tied for 2nd in tackles for loss in the SEC, and Johnson is tied for 5th. The biggest improvement for the Aggies is their ability to stop the pass. Last year, the Aggies were 98th in pass defense against FBS teams, and this year they're currently 53rd. If there is any concern on the Aggie defense, is their ability to get after the quarterback, since they're 94th in the country in defensive adjusted sack rate. Early in the season, the one weakness in the Crimson Tide offense was their ability to get a push up front with their offensive line. I mentioned the Crimson Tide were playing musical chairs at that spot, and once they figured out their best 5, they won't have an issue running the football. The offensive line is currently ranked 7th in the country in offensive adjusted line yardage, but to be honest, let's not kid ourselves. This offense is going to go as far as number 13 goes. Tua Tagovailoa is having another ridiculous start to the season with 23 touchdowns and no picks. The offense is crazy explosive, and by the way, they are 4th in the country in offensive explosiveness, and their wide receiver core forces you to play them honest. If you focus your energy to bracket one wide receiver, that's fine. The other 3 are capable of lighting you up. Over the years, the Crimson Tide are known for their dominant rush defense. This year, the Tide has slipped up in that metric in the raw statistical numbers, but when you adjust the rush defense for factoring in garbage time, the Tide is a top 20 rush defense, and they are currently 6th in the country in defensive success rate. For a team that is currently relying on 4 true freshmen in key positions, that should be encouraging. And if you're a fan, that's downright scary. But I'd be lying to you if I said this is a defense without any flaws. They are currently 95th in defensive stuff rate, which is the percentage of times they stop the run at or behind the line of scrimmage, and they are 54th in the country in defensive adjusted sack rate, so they are struggling to get after the quarterback. The keys to the game are simple. For Alabama, they have to limit explosive plays and play clean football. The Tide defense is going up against a shrewd play caller in Jimbo Fisher, and you can best believe he has used this bye week to cook up a few plays to fool the young linebackers. For Texas A&M, Kellen Mond is going to have to recreate that 2018 Clemson game. Mobile quarterbacks do not hurt Alabama's defense, but accurate quarterbacks do. He's going up against the 8th ranked adjusted pass defense, and if you know Alabama, they will play combo coverages and force A&M to throw in tight windows. If there is a stress point for the Tide, it's sometimes they have difficulty setting the edge out on the perimeter. So the computer model likes the Crimson Tide to win by the score of 40-24. A&M allows 80% of their opponents' rush averages and 84% of their opponents' pass averages. It expects the Crimson Tide to average 6.2 yards per play. Alabama is allowing 90% of their opponents' rush averages, which is not the usual standard of what we typically see out of the Crimson Tide, but 79% of their opponents' pass averages, and is expecting A&M to average 5.5 yards per play. The Crimson Tide averages 92% of their usual per play averages on the road, and the Aggies average 129% of their usual per play average at home. So this was a game I circled in the preseason that I felt Alabama could potentially lose. Usually the games that Alabama falls short in, it usually has a quarterback who just doesn't miss. Kellen Mond is more than capable of making plays with his arm and his feet, and Jimbo Fisher would love nothing more than to notch a signature win at Texas A&M. For Alabama, the freshmen on defense cannot get rattled under the pressure of playing at Kyle Field. Their maturity is going to be tested on Saturday, but in the end, I think Alabama will pull this out, and they will showcase balance after the bye week on offense to the score of 48-27. Aggies, if you pull this one out, I will give you major props. But it's time to segue to a matchup with the flagship school in Texas and something about a rivalry that was formerly called a shootout. So Aggies, if you were to turn away at this particular game preview, I completely understand and I definitely get it. We got the annual Red River Rivalry between 6th-ranked Oklahoma and 11th-ranked Texas. Last year, we were really blessed to have these two teams play twice, with Texas winning the first match behind Sam Ehlinger's monster game, and in the Big 12 championship game, Kyler Murray did some Kyler Murray things in the rematch. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started and jump into the tail of the tape. So as we review the tail of the tape, Oklahoma is ahead of Texas in overall F+ and SP+. They also hold an advantage over the Longhorn defense when they have the ball, obviously, but Texas holds a large advantage when they have the ball on offense against the Sooner defense. SP+ gives the Sooners a 77% win probability, and Vegas currently has the Sooners as a 9.5 point favorite as this was being recorded. The Sooners have batted 1,000 over the last 2 years at quarterback with Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. It looks like they've hit another home run with Alabama transfer Jalen Hurts. The former SEC Offensive Player of the Year as a freshman has been nothing short of impressive, and if the Heisman was being awarded in September, you can make that argument that he's already won it. The OU offense hasn't taken a step back in production from last year. They're still number 1 in overall SP+, second in offensive success rate, first in explosiveness, first in adjusted rush offense, first in opportunity rate, and third in adjusted pass offense. Slowing down this offense is not going to be easy for any defense. I don't expect Lincoln Riley to stay in college football any longer if he can maintain this type of production year in and year out. Now on the other side of the ball, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. The Sooner defense is not the wet paper bag defense they were last year. They were just flat out horrendous last year on that side of the ball. Mike Stoops' brutal defensive scheme was not a good fit. Enter Alex Grinch, who fielded some decent defenses at Washington State, and the Sooner defense has greatly improved. For example, they were 87th in adjusted defensive success rate last year, and currently in that metric they're ranked 23rd. That's a pretty big leap. They're also 6th in adjusted sack rate, and they finished 99th last year in that same metric. I know it's early in the season, but the Grinch hire has paid dividends, and you can tell like on that side of the ball, they are playing with much more energy and they are playing harder on every snap. The big question is if they can keep up this improvement each game. Tackling machine Kenneth Murray has been a solid fit for Grinch's aggressive scheme. The 4th-ranked overall offensive SP+ team is a load to handle on that side of the ball. Quarterback Sam Ehlinger is the straw that stirs the drink, accounting for 20 total touchdowns through the first 5 games. The Horns are going to use Ehlinger in the running game along with Roschon Johnson, who was a quarterback on the depth chart who has now made the move to running back. Last week against West Virginia, Johnson had 21 carries for 121 yards. Ehlinger's favorite target, though, is Devin Duvernay, and needless to say, that's an understatement. He has 45 catches, which is one less than Brennan Eagles, Jake Smith, Keontae Ingram, and Colin Johnson has combined. The offensive line has been making holes for the running backs as they are ranked 23rd in offensive adjusted line yardage, and they have only allowed 14% of their rush attempts to be stopped at the line of scrimmage or had a tackle for loss. Now on the other side of the ball, the Longhorn rush defense has been solid this year. They are currently allowing 81% of their opponent's rush average, and they're 30th in standard rush defense among FBS competition. Joseph Asai and Jeffrey McCulloch has been solid in run support, but if there is a pressure point, it is their pass defense. They are currently ranked 121st in standard pass defense, and when you adjust it for their opponents, they're at 117th. And they're also 105th in defensive explosiveness as well. So when you look at the teams Texas has faced this year, every team except for Louisiana Tech threw for more than their usual pass attempt average. LSU averages 10.3, they had 12.1. Rice came in averaging 6 yards per attempt. They got 7.8. Oklahoma State averages 7.7, and they ended up with 8.1. And just last week, West Virginia came in averaging 6.5 yards per attempt. They got 8 on Texas. I'm not sugarcoating this, but I think it might be time to retire the DBU phrase just for a little while, probably until Caden Stearns, BJ Foster, and Deshaun Jameson get more experience. The talent is there, but their youth is definitely showing. In the keys of the game for Oklahoma, they have to limit their explosive plays on defense. Sam Ehlinger and Devin Duvernay are a deadly combination. The Sooner defense is an improved defense from the previous year, but this is going to be the best passing team they have faced this season so far that has averaged over 8 yards per pass attempt. The best passing team from a yards per attempt standpoint that Oklahoma faced this year was UCLA, and they averaged 7.3 yards per attempt. Not sugarcoating this, but this is going to be a big test. For Texas, on defense, they got to force Jalen Hurts to his left. I've watched a ton of tape on Jalen Hurts at Alabama and at OU. Even though he has improved his footwork and his mechanics, he still has trouble when he goes to his left. Just like a right-handed basketball player, you got to force him left and have somebody ready to trap him to clean it up. However, you still have to make that tackle. The computer model has this game as a shootout. It likes the Sooners to win 48-41, which is a little closer than anticipated. It has the Longhorns to average 6 yards per play and the Sooners to average 9.5 yards per play. The Sooners are allowing 91% of their opponent's rush averages and 98% of their opponent's pass average, while the Longhorns are allowing 81% of their opponent's rush average and 111% of their opponent's passing averages. I think the model might be accurate with regards to this game being called a shootout. We're going to learn a lot about Oklahoma's defense, and I am curious to see if they have improved against a strong Texas offense. I have serious concerns about Texas's pass defense. The model likes the Horns' rush defense to hold the Sooner rushing attack to over a yard below their average, but it has the Sooners to throw for an ungodly 13 yards per pass attempt. I think it will come down to a last-second play like last year in the regular season, but I think the Sooners will eke out a win to the score of 49-45. And that's all I got for this game preview. Got one more this week, and if you're stopping at the end of this one, let me know who you think is going to win the game in the comment section below. Sooners and Longhorn fans, make sure you keep it clean in the comment section below. At least PG-13. If you're staying on strong since the first preview, come on down to the Bayou for a top 10 matchup in Death Valley at night, where the 5th-ranked LSU Tigers face the 7th-ranked Florida Gators. I am salivating at the battle between LSU's offense versus the Florida defense. This is a top 5 matchup in their respective advanced metrics and a top 10 matchup in overall SP+. Speaking of advanced metrics, yes, that is a 3 right next to LSU's offensive SP+. That is a real thing. So don't avert your eyes. It's true. It's happening. Vegas likes the Bayou Bengals as a bold 13.5 point favorite, but SP Plus gives them a 6-7% win probability at home and likes them as an 8-point favorite. If the game was played in the swamp, LSU would be favored by a field goal according to SP Plus. The Gators did just enough on offense to beat Auburn last week. You can make the argument that the score should have been much worse than what it was, based on the turnovers they had in critical situations that could have put the game out of reach, along with suspect play calling. The Gators are far away from the dreadful McElwain offense, but they are not elite either. When Kyle Trask doesn't turn the ball over, he's an efficient quarterback who will not get you beat. If the offensive line allows free shots at him, that's when the offense becomes disjointed. Kyle Pitts is the favorite target of the Gator attack, and he is a matchup problem at night tight end. They are still missing Kadarius Toney, who is out indefinitely with a shoulder injury. Now, this Gator defense on the other side of the ball is an instrument of chaos. Last week, Bo Nix didn't stand a chance against the defensive ends and linebackers flying around. They were seemingly everywhere. The Gators are 4th in the nation in defensive adjusted sack rate, getting to the quarterback on 13.7% of dropback passes, and they are 8th in scoring defense. John Grenard must be accounted for if you are on offense, and you can't sleep on Jabari Zaninga, Jeremiah Moon, Kyrie Campbell, and David Reese II. They have been extremely disruptive at the point of attack, and they come at offenses with malicious intent. Do not adjust your eyes. This is not a typo. LSU is 1st in scoring offense, 2nd in passing yards per game, and 2nd in total offense. That is indeed a real thing, and it is not from NCAA Football 14. The Tigers are slinging the ball all over the place, and they are using NFL concepts to stress the defense's weak spots on the field. Joe Burrow has been a touchdown machine this year, throwing for 22 touchdowns and 3 interceptions at a staggering 11.5 yards per attempt, and with an absurd 78% completion percentage to boot. Yeah, the guy that completed 57.8% of his passes from a year ago, That guy doesn't seem to exist anymore. And if you think the raw metrics are because, well, they haven't played anybody, Paul. Well, guess what? They're in the top 5 in adjusted offensive success rate, adjusted pass offense, adjusted standard downs, and adjusted passing downs. Those metrics I mentioned are adjusted based off your opponent. To say that this offense has improved, that is indeed a bit of an understatement. Now, defensively, however, it is a bit interesting. The advanced metrics do not favor the Bayou Bengals as they do on offense, but it is early in the season and they are slowly climbing their way back to respectability. Part of that was due to them having a lot of players nicked up, especially in the Texas and Vanderbilt games, where I didn't recognize who the heck I was watching. The LSU run defense is still pretty solid, allowing 2.7 yards per carry, and if they force you to be one-dimensional, you're in trouble. In the keys of the game, for Florida, the offense must be a factor. You can't have an ESU situation where the defense has to pitch a shutout. And by the way, bonus points to whoever can recall that movie. When Kyle Trask went down though, the Florida offense had a couple of nice plays with Amari Jones at quarterback, but you can tell the offense was not clicking on all cylinders. The offensive line must communicate on where the heat is coming from because Dave Aranda can definitely fool you. For LSU, clean football is a must. Playing a team like this when you are a heavy favorite, you can't give a team like Florida any gifts. Turnovers at critical times can kill momentum. In an interesting scenario, the computer likes the Tigers to win by a score of 48-27. It has LSU to gain 6.2 yards per play and Florida to gain 5.8 yards per play. The Gators are allowing 77% of their opponent's rush average and 89% of their opponent's pass averages. The Tigers are allowing 68% of their opponent's rush averages and 98% of their opponent's passing averages. Part of that pass average is because of Texas and their 8.3 yards per pass attempt that is on the Tigers' schedule. So I'll go ahead and say it with my chest. I was wrong on Florida last week. No doubt about it, I will own up to that one for sure. Their defense got after Bo Nix and forced him to make freshman mistakes. The Gator defense will definitely play like their hair is on fire each game, but my ultimate concern is, will they be able to recover from an emotional high of beating Auburn from last week? It's hard for teams to show up and give that same consistency week in and week out, especially when you're going on the road. I do believe LSU will be tested by Florida's defense. The passing game coordinator Joe Brady will work on getting the ball out quickly to negate Florida's pass rush. In the end, I think the LSU offense and the defense will be a little too much for Florida in this one to recover from an emotional win last week. I got LSU winning this one by the score of 38-20. That's all I got for this week. It's going to be a great week of college football, and I tried something a little different this time around in just putting all these previews into one. Let me know what your thoughts are on the games in the comment section below, and make sure you guys keep it clean. If you want to see more, hit that subscribe button if you want to stay updated in the world of college football, and also make sure you share the video as well. Thank you all for watching and have a great week. God bless.